Scholars, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about Gen Z and the overwhelming feeling that they just don't really care about anything at all. As a Gen Z, I was born in 2002. I'll be 24 in about a month. I feel like I'm probably one of the most qualified people to talk about this. So I have discerned that it's basically up to three main things, and they all evolve around the vibes. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. First thing, the vibes just aren't there anymore for Gen Z. So you can talk about COVID, you can talk about the housing crisis that no one can buy a house. You can talk about how guys just aren't getting laid, as a lot of guys like to talk about the incel problem. There's a lot going on. I think there's always been a lot going on, but Gen Z are more aware than millennials or Gen X or boomers were before them because of internet stuff like that. That there's a lot of crap going on that we have no control over, yet it affects all of our lives. And I feel like there's this nihilistic view that Gen Z have because we've seen millennials, we see them care about so much before them. They cared about Coney 2012, and they cared about the climate, and they cared about, I don't know, like being vegan and all of these crazy things that just had little to no effect. So we saw this and we were like, okay, just, like some people care, but like why bother? Like why care about the Black Lives Matter or Ukraine war or what's going on in Palestine? And like you can be outspoken, but you see directly how little the results you have about what you care about. So it's just not nearly to the same degree that the generations before us, particularly the millennials, about how they were like, we can make a difference. No, we can't. And more importantly, I think Gen Z just doesn't want the sympathy that, of like, oh man, you guys went through so much. It's like, we don't even care about having that because it's not going to do shit. Is it going to help me get an entry level job that I can't get? Is it going to help someone like me be able to buy a house, get a girlfriend? Like, no, like, your sympathy means nothing at the end of the day. So I don't even care about that. The vibes just aren't there right now. And what makes it worse is the second problem is that we were told that the vibes were there at one point. We always hear stories from our parents and grandparents like, this applies to the West mainly, of course. But like we were told like, oh man, like, this country used to be so great. When I was your age, I had like this many jobs and I had this experience and I got a promotion, and they have like this twisted view of like how the world used to work, and they automatically think we've inherited the same earth. Like like the joke of just put on a tie, get a good haircut, show up to the office where you want a job at, and you don't leave until you get that job. It's a joke. Like like that's maybe how it used to work, but no one's doing that now. Now I gotta go through 1,000 LinkedIn easy applies, and I'd be happy if one of them comes back, and with a rejection, or it's a humiliation ritual getting a job these days, or trying to get a loan or trying to get out of student debt. Like we're in more debt than ever, and we've got a higher unemployment rate than ever, or at least in recent times, and no one seems to be doing anything to help. So why should we care? Why should I hold myself to the standard that you're holding myself to? Talking to my parents, talking to my grandparents. Why should I compare myself at 23 as you were at 23 when, if I'm just being honest, chances are, at least in my case, but chances are that they had it a lot easier than we did, and we're getting judged for not having the same amount of success. And I get it. Like you want your children to be more successful than you. You want your children to have better opportunities, and if you see it not happening, like it's hard to like look up at the sky and be like, like the government, that's what's doing it. And it's easier just to blame the kid. You're not taking advantage of what you've been given. It's like, no, we're trying our best, but nothing's coming through. And that makes it worse. It's like, why should I try at this point? Why should I go through the humiliation ritual of applying on the LinkedIn, of going to university, of getting into even more debt, of putting off real life potentially, because real life it's harder than ever. Or not including the Great Depression, of course, but in general, it's fucking tough, man. No one seems to be talking about it, and because of that, it's like, why try and fail and continue to make my elders feel bad for me when I can just like hide in a corner. I can get a decent facsimile of life of like by like scrolling Instagram and playing video games and watching OnlyFans, but like that's the better version of life than I can get right now. Of going through the pain of like going outside, putting myself out there, like applying for a job and then just getting rejected over and over again and just feeling shame and guilt for it. So it's like I get it. I'm not saying that I do that, but like when I see like my friends and my cousins and brothers and people I grew up with doing the same thing, it's like I don't blame you. Why? How can I blame you? This is the earth that we inherited, and and we've been told that we've got it great, but really we don't, and we just don't have a purpose, and it's hard to find that purpose. Which leads me to the final thing of the future vibes are fucked. We've been told our whole lives like, yo, the earth sucks. Like politicians and greedy oil executives have ruined the planet, and all the elections are between like two idiots, and you have to choose. It's not about who you like; it's about who's not worse. And we've been given a very bleak view of what the world is going to look like, and why should I invest in that? The social contract up until this point is you do the hard work now. You go to university, you get the job, you put in the 80 hours a week, whatever. Eventually you'll be rewarded. You put off having a good life in the short term so you can have it in the long term. But when that long term isn't guaranteed, when we're going through depressions and recessions and there's wars going on all the time, and we're told not to believe in our politicians, and this guy's gonna fix it, but he doesn't really. He makes it worse, and it's like, this society hasn't believed in me, so why should I believe in its future? Why should I contribute to the S&P 500? Why should I put money in my 401k when I don't know if I'm going to be around to access it in 60 years? Apparently every day I'm being told the world's crumbling, so why should I invest in it? Why should I believe in it in the next 80 years or whatever? Why should I put on the tie and go to work and move to New York and live in a $5,000 a month shoebox so I can barely scrape by and just feel horrible about myself when I can just not care, stay home? I get it. Why invest in the future? I'm not trying to be doomer, by the way. I'm just like, why invest in the future if I'm being told like it's not going to work out, and I don't want you to feel bad for me, but people do, and it sucks. But what? There's no point in investing in the future when I can just try and enjoy the best life I can now. I can, go on a Klarna and go on that holiday, or, like start that business. And, I think we've been given an idea of there's, as the middle class gets squeezed out of Western countries of Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States, we are being told like the only way to make anything is it's best to either be extremely poor or to be extremely wealthy. So that's why like guys my age are seriously into gambling, and like if this parlay hits, I'm generational wealth, because it's like, and if it doesn't hit, then whatever. Having $0 is not that much worse than having $10. So I might as well spend the rest of my $10 like hoping LeBron gets 20 3-pointers or whatever the fuck, and whatever. Because it's like, we've been told, and we've kind of been shown the reality, through whatever you want to call it, news, social media, society, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. We're told that if you want to matter, you have to have everything. And if you're stuck in the trap of the middle class 9-to-5 life, then it's better to have nothing than to have that. Escape the matrix, whatever you want to call it. Bullshit. But it used to be that the middle class, that was the driving motivator for people to get out of poverty. Now it's like, I might as well stay in poverty. I might as well collect the checks, the benefit checks. Not saying that there's anything wrong with collecting benefits, of course not. Or usually, as long as you're not taking advantage of the system. But people feel cheated. People feel cheated out of a future that they thought that they deserved. And it doesn't seem like they're going to get it anytime soon. So I get the giving up. I'm not saying I do it. I feel there is like a small group of people. I like to think I'm in this cohort of people who are like, okay, it sucks, but this is all we have, and I'd rather, make something out of it and, find a purpose. But unfortunately, some people can't find that purpose. And again, I just don't blame them. You can't blame them. at the end of the day. I don't see the point. I don't see the point in blaming them of, you know, like staying in your mom's basement and vaping and playing video games. It's like you've been sold a bad bill of goods and you've been told to be grateful for it. You've been told like, you know, the world is yours and you're not taking advantage of it and you should be. But in reality, it's like the world Gen Z has grown up in and the world our parents and grandparents and millennials grew up in is incredibly different. And because of that, I think we've become incredibly nihilistic in general. And of course, you know, generally speaking, most of the things I talk about is general, but yeah, the only advice I can give is just do what makes you happy. You know, I think it's corny as fuck, but you know, at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. At the end of the day, doing what makes you happy and doing what you feel like is going to give you purpose, that's the only thing you can truly give yourself up to. And that's the advice I would give to my brothers, friends, cousins, like I've, you know, people who have come from the exact same background of me, who've just not been given the opportunities that I honestly believe they deserve. There's so many people who deserve way more than what they have. And I don't want to say I feel sorry for them because I hate it when people feel sorry for me, but I feel sorry that they have been given up to a system that has let them down in the past, present, and most likely in the future. And more importantly, we've just been given no reason to believe in the future. So yeah, bleak video today, but you know, I hope you somewhat enjoyed it. And you know, if you have any thoughts, let me know down below. Okay, I'll talk to you boys later. Peace.